Hello guys, so for today we are finally doing a build video of a racing drone. I am primarily a racer and I like to race drones. There are two things for me to consider in building my racing drone. First, it has to have the best performance that it can have with the parts that I have. And second, it has to be durable while doing so. In racing, you will crash a lot trying to push your skills and trying to get better. So it is important for your drone to be the most durable it can to handle your abuse. So for today, we are using the CBD frame by Master Ruben Ecleo, Airbot Furling 32. This is 2020 32-bit ESC. TBS Crossfire Nano RX. This is an Airbot F7. This is a prototype FC. This is the Unify Pro 32 Furious FPV Air LHCP antenna, Runcam Nano 2, and some RC Power 2207 Plus motors. So those are 1860 kV and this will be a 6S build. So let's get right into it. So first for my build, I personally like to do it from the outside in, either starting with the motors or with the ESC. So, well actually, how I would do it is first to install the ESC, install my motors, and work my way from there. So let's go. So now we will be attaching the motors to our frame. I will be using the shorter screws that comes with the RC Power motors because the frame has 5mm arms. The other set of screws that comes with the RC Power motor are 9mm. Those are for 6mm arms. So these are 5mm arms, so we'll use the shorter screws. Okay, so we have our ESC back on there. I'd like to show you a little trick that I've learned through very many trial and errors of trying to get that to look really nice and clean. Actually, this wouldn't matter as long as your wires have pretty good connection with your motor and the ESC. It doesn't really matter that much, but I like to make my quads look pretty. So you have to decide where you would want to let your wires flow through. So for this build, I wanted to go around this certain press nut, right? So I will bunch up my wires to go around that, following that nice pattern. So what I do is basically the wire to the leftmost would go to the nearest pad on the ESC. The wire in the middle will go on the second, and the wire on the rightmost of the motor will go to the third one. So once you have that there, now you want to see how you want to see the length of where you'd want the motor wire to end up with the ESC. So I have come up with a trick. So with this trick, this will get you pretty clean wiring, and I hope you like it. So okay, let's do it. So once you have that there, you want to size up your motor wires somewhere around there, right? When you get it to where you approximately want it to be, you want to take the leftmost of your wire, or the wire that's going to the nearest pad of the ESC. Okay, you want to take the wire that's going to the nearest pad of your ESC, and you want to cut it around the second pad of your ESC tab. So that's right on the middle, right? So somewhere like that. So now if you size it up, actually you'll have enough slack for tinning the wire and for wiring it up to the flow you want it to go. So once you have that cut, what you need to do now is to straighten your motor wires. Then then cut it at around, um, how many is this? Half a centimeter distance from each other, or maybe even less. Want to cut it that way. Reminder again, this is from bunching up your motor wires back straight, right? Want to do that. So you want it to end up looking like that. So again, oops, sorry about that. So let's just fix the camera. Okay, so again, recap what we did is to figure out the flow of where we want our wires to be. We sized up the motor wire that's going to the nearest pad of the ESC, and once we cut that up with enough slack to thin the wire and just for the overall length of the wire, what we want to do is to bunch it up in a straight manner and cut it staggeredly, right? You'll see the effect of this in a few. So actually, before cutting the motor wires for the next pads of the ESC, I actually like to just solder that pad right away to see if I cut it at the length that I want, so that if I didn't do a very good job at first, I would be able to adjust how I cut it for the next motors. Okay, so let's turn on the iron and let's tin it. So now I'm just stripping the wires of the motor wires. So this is how much I strip my wires. It's not a lot, but it's enough for the ESC to have good contact with the motor wires. So always remember to twist your wires to bunch them up and not have any frays. Okay. So I have my soldering iron set at around 390 degrees Celsius. Okay. I have my wire, and this is 60/40 solder. It is very important to get leaded solder. It flows way nicer than lead-free solder. So right now we are just tinning the wires, I mean. Okay, so you have that, just wanna do solder to pads. Then how I like to do it for this build is I want the one nearest to go that way, to go around straight that way, and the next two to be kind of diagonal. So you'll see what I mean in a bit. As you can see, that is a very smooth solder joint. You could see that it flowed all the way through. You want to see that. That is very essential in making sure that your quad works as it should. I have seen lots of people who complain about breaking parts or their parts not working right. Then once I see their build, I could see that they have totally ruined the board with their soldering skills. So it's pretty essential to practice your soldering skills to ensure that your quad works as well as it should. So right now I am coming in at an angle to get that flow that I want. As you can see, that's also a pretty good joint. Oops, that's wrong. I actually soldered the last one there, so sorry, my bad. Okay, it's on there. Let's just touch this up with a bit more solder since mistake of the pad. So as you can see, one wire is straight up at the side and the other two are diagonal, and when we put it to the flow of the wires that we want, check that out. That is pretty spot on to how we want. Maybe the short one is a bit too very bit too long, but that I'm pretty happy with that. It's pretty good. So now we can proceed to our next 3 motors. Okay guys, so this is the finished product of soldering the motors to the ESC. As you can see with the trick that I use and that I taught you, the wires are all flowing into a nice curve going to the ESC. This is done to alleviate some of the tension that the motor might give to the ESC once maybe it gets ripped off, and it looks pretty nice. This also allows for easier servicing in the future since you have extra wire length to your ESC. So in the event that you maybe cut a motor wire and you have to extend it, it wouldn't be too much of a hassle because you have that extra stack. Aside from it being functional, it also looks pretty. So the next thing, or the next tip that I would actually want to show you is brushing your ESC that has your motor soldered onto it already with isopropyl alcohol. So you can either spray some isopropyl alcohol to an old toothbrush, or sometimes I actually just right on spray some to the ESC since 70% isopropyl alcohol evaporates pretty easily. So what this does is that it cleans your ESC from maybe any balls of solder that might have been dropped on it, and this cleans off the flux that is in your components. So as you can see, I've used some rubber grommets on the underside of the ESC to give it enough clearance so that a strap can go through that part of the frame. So the first phase of my drone assembly is pretty much done. So next we will be proceeding with the flight controller.